I've discussed Predator at length before. I consider it a masterpiece, and you can see why in this video here. I'm still going to talk about it now, but I'm also going to be discussing the whole franchise. This isn't a ranking, though I'll do that at the end for all of you that like that sort of thing, but instead an exploration of each film and how they compare and complement one another. Now join me on this delightful blood-soaked journey as we explore how the hunt since 1987 has evolved all the way to that new film.
The Predator.
I just wanted to let you know that this video is sponsored by Squarespace. Now I'll go into that in more detail later, but I'm building a site with them now and I can tell you that it is genuinely worth getting it if you at all want a website. You'll hear more about my site soon, but for now start your free trial today at www.squarespace.com/Rossatron and use the code Rossatron to get 10% off your first purchase. Thanks. Do I need to tell you that the first film is a masterwork of action horror cinema? No? Good. It's an amalgam and satire of big bombastic 80s American cinema whilst being one of the best examples of that.
Son of a bitch.
How do you deconstruct a meat head?
Knock, knock.
You put them through a meat grinder. Introducing them to an enemy that has as much in common with Michael Myers as it does an alien meant we ended up with this wonderfully thrilling action horror sci-fi that is both completely rooted in 80s thematics and symbolism, but also timeless. Is Predator scary? I've met a lot of people who watched it too early that found it frightening as a child, but it's more about the intensity, the pressure on these guys, the tension from that. Most of the film too, we simply don't fully know or understand what this thing is. Yeah, we know it's an alien, and of course now we've seen a lot of these creatures, but here it's a careful reveal that allows the audience to feel like they know as much as the characters. Early on, the script makes the smart choice of having us see the team absolutely ruin dozens of bad guys, so that when we see the Predator take them on with relative ease, it gives the beast power. By the time we get to the final fight, we want Arnie to win. Like us, he's picked up along the way an idea of how the creature works at devastating cost. So his informed but painful struggle feels balanced just right to believe that he could beat it. Even the music is just phenomenal. It's one of the things that has stuck with the series throughout, but really stands out here as potentially one of the best parts of an already great film and an absolute classic score in its own right. The film was a financial success, and soon, in 1990, we had a sequel. With Arnie declining to return as Dutch due to a salary dispute, so instead we got the story of Michael Harrigan. I will say this before I get into anything about Predator 2, they had a difficult thing to follow, and luckily they didn't do just another retread. We've seen the Predator, the mystique has been lost to a point. Predator 2 is more of an action film than a horror film, and that is a smart way to go since we know this creature, it's not as scary anymore.
Shit happens.
It's a dark, violent affair that expands the Predator mythology with some great interplay between its human characters.
I stabbed that son of a bitch plenty of times. He never died on me before.
Where the first had a certain purity though that I love going back to, here I can't get away from the fact that they had to try so hard to make this story work. We've established the Predators like to hunt in hot places. Taking it to a hot city makes sense. The problem is then that there isn't much trapping these characters here. It lacks that narrative simplicity of the team being stuck in an oppressive environment and them being the very clear prey. In the original, the Predator is hidden as we only see things from our character's view. You look through the trees yourself to try and find it. Here, the Predator is sort of absent for long stretches before popping up as a third party in human skirmishes. We focus on so many other plot points that the actual creature's presence isn't felt as much, and thus there isn't quite enough tension. The background too is often full of people kind of getting on with life. They want you to believe the concrete jungle is as dangerous as the actual jungle, but when you see people playing around in the background, you don't feel that. It does seem rather than make the humans stronger here, the Predator is a little weaker. It has far more weapons than in the first film and kills more prey, but by the end, it's being chased down by a detective rather than chasing him. The image of a one-armed predator flopping down off a building like this? It's not exactly fear-inducing. The director Hopkins is clearly more interested in the mythology and science fiction, along with making a sweaty action thriller. Whereas before you felt hunted, here you feel a bit more the hunter. But the action sequences aren't handled quite as well, so save for the great bit on the train, that isn't as effective. Basically, it's just a lesser sequel, and that's okay. The first exists, and this broadened what the franchise could be. Okay, I won't lie, 14-year-old me was very excited for this film, and 14-year-old me kind of enjoyed it. The way it builds the mythology too, of the Predator's effect on human history, of the rituals, I quite like. Divorced from those previous films and seen on its own, it's a somewhat enjoyable piece of action hokum. But we aren't looking at this on its own, we're looking at it as part of the wider Predator franchise, and there, it suffers. They wanted to please fans, show them things they thought they would want to see, but at the expense of the narrative. The choices made are simply so cool things can happen later, and in future films. This is a film about plot, not story. It is a checklist of what you might want to see in an AVP film. This is a cool shot, but then having one of these Xenos able to snuff out two Predators, does that make sense? Showing how badass this guy is, only to have him let his guard down from a facehugger, simply to later have the Pred-Alien? Speeding up the Alien Genesis a ridiculous amount, and then not have these guys who literally built a temple to breed aliens realize that their comrade is impregnated? It's a highlight reel of cool ideas that in execution just don't work very well. Now, if it were a great action film at least, I could forgive it, but it too often resorts to shaky cam, and though it's a little more violent than I admittedly remember, to say it's a PG-13 entry in both of these franchises is just kind of unforgivable. It shows it was aiming at teenagers and you feel that when watching it, but as an adult, I just can't really describe it as anything but an unfortunate experiment. Well, not as unfortunate as this. This is AVP Requiem. Okay, so it's not that bad, but Jesus, this film really is dark. Like, sometimes you can barely see anything. It's almost a shame as though, yes, this is by far the worst chapter in Predator's history, but if you watch it as a self-contained bit of trash cinema, gory, silly and messy, then it almost works. Almost. As an official Predator film though, good lord, did it mess that up. Alien really is a film series that has suffered most from its remarkable art house horror original to this travesty, but Predator took a similar blow too. I mean, it just gets ridiculously grim. I see what they're trying to do here in contrasting the Pred-Alien with the second film's honourable Predator, but it's just not what I want from this series. This is meant to be fun. The actual Predator too, something of a cosmic cleanup crew member coming to make sure the alien continuity isn't ruined, kind of lacks that honour too that we expect. The filmmakers like Predator, that much is clear, but do they really understand what makes it work? Not really. They put a lot of violence in, but not much else. Here is a film that does work for the most part. It has some issues, but as a Predator film, it does everything you expect. Which is actually its major issue. It does too much of what you expect. In fact, it's basically a retread of the first, with way less humour and characters that have very little chemistry. I felt that everything I was seeing had happened before, but done better back then. Being on the game planet was a nice twist, but it didn't really actually offer anything all that new other than some imagery.
We're gonna need a new plan.
Fishbone's character is the most unique part of it, and I really like the scene with the dogs. But otherwise it feels like we've seen most of this before. Basically, Predators is fine. It's way better than the AVP films and less all over the place as Predator 2 and The Predator. But I get more out of watching those films than this, which is a shame. With a bit more confidence and ambition, Predators could have been something really special. It's been 8 years since we last saw the mandibled horror on the big screen, and it's great to see him back, for the most part. Yes, sadly, arguably this isn't a great film. It's a great time, but it has issues. I mean, that's a pattern clearly really with all of the sequels, that they pale in comparison to the first, but they still have something to offer.
It's not a predator, that's a sports hunter.
Well, we took a vote. Predator's cooler, right? Fuck yeah.
I like the human characters here. Even the kid didn't bother me as much as I expected, though maybe I'd have liked to have him a little less involved. What I like about this film is that it knows what it is, the way the original did. This is an at times hilarious film, and it's just evolving the sense of humour that was laid out in the first. That machismo, that element of satire, it's dialed to 11 here, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I wish the tone had hewed a little darker at times, but the first film is a gory creature feature adventure with a sense of humour, so that's what they're building on here. They actually end as well with a team in a forest being hunted by a predator. I appreciated that. The old school nature though isn't everything here, sadly. You're gonna see a lot of CGI, and a lot of it feels at best just noticeable and at worst, shoddy. The green screen work isn't always great, and the CG Super Predator has the unfortunate problem of following a fantastic practical one. In contrast, it just looks less impactful, less powerful. It's supposed to be bigger and stronger, but it lacks a certain weight that comes with a practical suit. The blood, too, is a mix of wonderfully gooey and practical, and overly slick, weightless, in CG. The speed of which Shane Black gets through this film too, with the obvious effects of heavy reshoots, gives it a somewhat scattershot feeling. It doesn't feel sometimes like the work of an assured filmmaker, which Black has proven that he is. What this film does have in spades though is character. Not just the great humans, but the film itself has a ridiculous, hilarious personality that luckily helps you forgive some of the lacking filmmaking on display.
Alien.
Only time will truly tell if I can enjoy this film the way I can Predator 2 and Predators, in spite of their flaws, but for now, I look forward to seeing it again, and I guess that is praise enough. Predator is a classic to me. It gets everything right, and it knows what it is.
Stick around.
All of the mainline sequels struggle to maintain a consistent tone and a confidence that the original had, but they also have a lot to offer on their own, and each has a respect for the creature that I appreciate. What's clear is that there appear to be enough filmmakers out there that love and understand the first film to always offer fans something to enjoy as they play around in this sandbox. What's my ranking? Well, number 1 is obvious. Predator 2, for all its flaws, still works well as an action film, so it goes to number 2. The Predator is a bit messy, but it's so fun, I can't help but get it in as the number 3. Predators is just too lacking in originality and personality for it to really stand out to me, but honestly, ranking any of the 3 direct sequels was really tough, and they are pretty interchangeable. The last 2 spots are obvious. AVP sort of works well enough as a brainless watch to sit comfortably above Requiem, and Requiem is just clearly the weakest of them all. I want to see more of what other filmmakers can do with Predator. We've gone for the straight sequel, we've seen the close retread, we've watched the ridiculous comedy adventure version, we've even seen it take on the Alien franchise, so what's next? I don't know, to be honest, but time has proven that I'll be there day one to see it, and I'll probably still really enjoy it. Till next time. So I'm building a site with Squarespace. What's it going to be? Who knows? I mean, I do, and it's exciting, but you don't know yet. What I do know is that whilst I'm building this thing, I'll have 24/7, 365-day-a-year support to use this, all in one platform. There's no plugins, no updates, no patches, ever. Mental, but true. Remember, if you need a website building the way you can see I am doing here, yes, I am a better editor than I am a website builder, but without how easy to use Squarespace is, this would look a whole lot worse. Then you can get 10% off if you sign up through me. Start your free trial today at www.squarespace.com/Rossatron or use the code Rossatron to get 10% off your first purchase. Thank you.